not only could I finish the other two, but I could also tell a backstory if I really wanted to, because that's a good story. It's fun to go back into that world.
What do you think is the best order to watch Star Wars?
Roger, roger.
It's unfair.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey everyone, what is going on today? So, there is a common question by some of you. Why did George come out with episodes 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3? Well, the answer is because Yoda was in charge of the order. Thanks guys, I'll see you. No. So sometimes I forget that not everyone here is a diehard fan. So these videos hopefully spread the info evenly for those who want to know but don't. Some might think that it's weird George started from episode 4 with Star Wars back in 1977. Why did he do this? Did he know that he'd make the prequels later on? Why didn't he just continue the story from Return of the Jedi and go on to 7, 8, 9, which is what Disney is doing now? Well, truth of the matter is, he actually was going to continue with 7, 8, 9, but then he thought it would be more fun to go back in time and tell the story of everything before it happened. So originally, episode 4 didn't have a number. The number wasn't added until Empire came out, in which then it was actually labeled 2 in Roman numerals. The original version for Empire Strikes Back received a hand treatment from George, from which experienced writer Lee Brackett did a first draft. The original script for that was slightly different, where Vader wasn't really Vader, he was just Luke's father, who comes as a Force ghost to guide Luke, making Obi-Wan the guy who killed him. So in fact, originally Vader was supposed to say, "Obi-Wan killed your father." Now, sadly, once Brackett passed away, George went back and changed the script, making Vader Luke's father, and Obi-Wan to be his guide, and pretty much making Star Wars the way it is now. It was only in rewriting that draft after Brackett's death that George came up with the idea to tell Vader's backstory in 3 prequel films, and then, 4, 5, 6 came out. Now, in many documentaries from the behind-the-scenes footage from the prequels, which I'm going to put one of them at the end of this video, he goes over how he could have never done these scenes back in the 80s. The technology in the last 20 years has just come so far, which has allowed him to make virtually more than half of his movies in CGI, for the prequels at least. Now in the originals, they used real models and scenes for filming, with less green screens used in any of the prequels if you combine all the originals together. I really like the originals. I think it gave it more of a realistic feel, as the CGI was still great in the prequels, but it wasn't really perfected as it kind of is now in the early 2000s. In episode 1, the entire fight between the droids and Gungans was done in CGI, and so was every single clone trooper done. Their armor, their guns, everything. They were all CGI. This, of course, wasn't possible when episode 4 came out in 77, and then later on in the 80s.
And then very difficult in terms of cost. It's always a limiting factor. But even if you take that out, there were things that just couldn't be done, regardless of how much money you had. One of the problems I had with Yoda is that, for instance, is that he couldn't move more than 6 feet in any one thing, and I couldn't show his legs. So I couldn't show him in a wide shot, and I couldn't show him running, jumping, or walking, really, any distance. We had to sort of rig backpacks and things to make him, to be able to transport him places. Now I can make him move anywhere I want. It's a great asset to be able to have a lot of the creatures that couldn't move before be able to move.
Now, what a lot don't know is that George had help writing the originals, but when it came to the prequels, it was pretty much all him. And by that time, he was known as, of course, the legend, George Lucas. So for people to tell him that an idea was good or bad was sort of shot down before it even landed on the conference table because of his track record from the originals. This could be a reason why a lot of original trilogy fans didn't like the prequels as much, because it was more of George in those ones than in the originals. Personally, I really like the prequels. I'm a huge George Lucas Star Wars fan, but of course, nothing will ever bring the same feel as the originals. Those are just classics, and they should stay untouched until the very end of time. As for George wanting to make all 9 movies, this was actually going to happen, and he would have. He wrote out 7, 8, 9, at least parts of them, but the partial reason was due to him getting such a bad backlash from the prequels, in particular The Phantom Menace, and this is kind of what pushed him to sell the franchise in the first place. Just think, all those beautiful, amazing stories from 7, 8, 9 that we'll probably never see.
When I do these 3, then it's finished. I've kind of done the story, and I feel I've accomplished what I set out to do originally, even more so, because what I really set out to do was the first 3. I didn't even think I would get the first 3 done until after the films came out. And then when the films came out, I realized not only could I finish the other 2, but I could also tell a backstory if I really wanted to, because that's a good story. It's fun to go back into that world.
Now, when George did sell Star Wars to Disney, they did agree to honor what his story was telling and basically continue from it. But, of course, it's, taken a little bit of a different path, and that's fine. I guess, we'll see what goes on from here. So let me know, everyone, what do you think is the best order to watch Star Wars? George claims that the best way to watch them now is from 1 to 6, but you know, I grew up with 4 to 6 and then 1 to 3, so for me, I'm pretty happy with it. But it makes me wonder what it's like for a newbie coming into Star Wars and seeing them all from, you know, chronological order. Anyways, I hope that answered this question. Thank you for watching, everyone. Have an awesome day, my fellow Jedi and Sith friends. I will see you all in the next episode of Star Wars Theory. Until then, remember,
The Force will be with you. Always.
Now, fulfill your destiny.